Hacker McNabb, another character. Town was full of them.
So I believe that that is my Uncle Johnny, which would be Teddy's brother.
He couldn't get his trunk closed anyway.
He lived in Montreal, and his wife's name was Olive. When we used to go into the city of Montreal and visit them, their children were already out of the house. They weren't at the apartment. I think they had a son and a daughter, I think, but I'm not sure on their...
Yeah, there's one of them was away from youth. I wouldn't know the older one. Johnny he was a cop in Montreal. I don't ever remember him at all. I knew of him.
Now that's Aunt Betty, right?
Her name was actually Geraldine Higgins too.
Yeah.
I was named right after her.
Oh, that's his sister Betty.
I had two, one big Betty, little Betty.
So that's one of Johnny Cameron's.
Definitely can't know, but she looks like Bailey.
She looks like who?
Bailey.
And that little guy? Bubs?
No.
The Camerons?
My cousin Johnny had three daughters. They were all blonde.
So-
Very well could be one of them. Yeah, I know I'm pretty sure those were the Cameron children, but would be Johnny Cameron, Nellie Cameron's grandchildren. It sure looks like them.
So Johnny is one of Nellie's sons,
Yeah, he's passed away now.
and those were his three children?
Yeah.
His three girls?
Three girls.
Oh, that's Gove McNabb. And yes, he and Betty were married. So Betty's first husband was Higgins, but then Gove and Betty were married. Well, that's a house that I used to live in that was on the corner of Water and Douglas. You probably remember it being turned in front of the Garden Suites on that green patch.
He's showing off the dog's teeth.
Happy dog.
Oh yeah, no, that's cute. That was behind the house over here. That would be at the homestead. Well, I think that's a side profile of Uncle Teddy. I think. So I think it's when he lived with Aunt Kay, his sister.
That's Bob there with the red shirt.
That is.
Who's that?
Yeah, my brother Frederick. That's his nickname was Bob.
Remember, I thought it was him, but I wasn't sure. I'd like to say it's me, but I don't know.
12 in that little house. I think they hung them on nails. Yeah, that little house that was there, there's 12 kids, 6 boys and 6 girls. And the boys all got away. Teddy got away. Johnny got away.
Is that Acker McNabb?
Yeah, I do believe that is Acker walking.
The walk.
He's quite
The walk, yeah.
It is, yep.
I can tell by the way he walks. He had the same walk, drunk or sober. Hacker McNabb. He worked at Cottage Craft, you see, and that's where he's headed. Okay. That was his nickname, of course. His real name was, let me think, Roger McNabb's uncle.
Okay.
And he was a character. He was a town character. Well, that looks like a movie was being made or something. Did you notice that spotlight?
Yeah.
Dressed to the nines to come
He
in
was
town and
always out and about.
Yeah.
Always.
strike a pose. Teddy Rooney was the one that always had the beautiful flower beds. Teddy was known for his flowers and his yard and his upkeep.
He planted the rhododendrons that are there in front of the post office today, and they're absolutely gorgeous. And it was a time when it was iffy to grow rhododendrons in St Andrews. They didn't survive, but they were very sheltered there, and he gave us hope that we could grow rhododendrons, I thought. And every time I see them, I think of Ted. It's interesting in the picture, you can see that he just planted them. Nice memory to have in flowers.
I remember when it looked like that with the white painted rocks and everything.
Oh, yeah. Remember when Teddy caught that lady tourist cutting the flowers? He gave her quite the speech, and it was recorded and put in the newspaper. He caught her cutting the flowers. She said something about flowers that's beautiful shouldn't be in front of a post office, and he took them away from her. And I think he gave them to a lady in her 90s or something.
Oh,
Mrs.
really?
Gown.
Oh, I didn't know all of this story.
I think I still have the clipping.
Couple of kids.
See, they could be grandchildren. God, there's a clan of them.
See, that could be some of Teddy's nieces and nephews.
Probably, yes.
Yeah. They're obviously brother and sister fighting the way they are.
These two remain a mystery to, I think, everybody as to who they are.
Because little Betty, she only had 2 kids. The rest of them, they had dozens. One was married to a Cameron, she had 4 or 5. Another one married to a Brown, she had 4 or 5. And I don't know how many Big Betty had. Eddie had 4. Another girl, Stevie, married to Stevie, she had 3 boys, lived in Calais.
He looks like he should still be around or alive, or
Could be, but whose boy he would be. Yeah, there's a big family of them, and the kids had kids, a lot of kids. Except little Betty, she only had 2. Of course, Teddy and Freddie never got married. Bernie never got married. Charlie never got married. Johnny was married.
This is an Aunt Kay's. So Teddy must be showing off his new stereo equipment.
so that would be his.
I'm guessing.
And this would be next door, right?
Johnny was the only one who got married.
Johnny?
Oh, Fuddy that lived over here. He had a little house down behind where the flagpole, where the weather pole was. That was,
Yeah.
he lived down in there. He was around quite a while, but the other 3 were in Montreal. Johnny, Charlie, and Bernie. Because Charlie was a chauffeur in Montreal. Johnny's a cop. I don't know what Bernie done. He used to come home on the weekend in the summertime, come home for a vacation. And he was just a small guy. Then Freddie and Teddy never left town.
Now that looks like Uncle Mickey standing right there fishing. That looks like his shape, the one right in line with the sun setting. Right there with the fishing rod, because he always was down on the wharf fishing.
Okay.
And that looks like his big car he used to have, because
Beautiful Cadillac.
he used to come to Montreal and on his way out west, and he'd leave his car parked at our place in Clarenceville for the winter when he would go out to Calgary as a chef. Be the same boy, a few years older. So that's Acker standing
It
there?
looks like Acker
Yeah.
again, yeah.
It looks like he's spinning a yarn, telling them a story.
Okay, see the woman standing there holding the purse? I think that might be my mother.
See, Mum?
It might be. The way she's standing and when she turns her head a little bit.
Look at them all gathered around. Is that Charlie? Charlie Rooney.
Charlie Rooney.
Yeah,
Okay.
Teddy's brother. It is. Look
Yeah,
at the way
it's
he
gotta
looks.
be.
Yeah, the way he walks. It's the movement. There, look at that, Jerry.
Yeah.
Do you remember him singing?
Sounded just like Hank Snow.
I never heard him
Did
sing
he sang?
anything by Hank Snow.
Pretty much. That's what I
Really?
used to hear him sing.
I never. Well, maybe when I was a little wee girl and we would come to Aunt Kay's, Because she was very musical too, and I can remember her playing the accordion, but I can't remember ever hearing my Uncle Teddy sing or play.
Somebody's good at lip reading, we might be able to work it out.
Exactly. But I know, I mean, my Aunt Kay had a keyboard in her living room, and she would often, you know, sit down and start plunking away at that, but she could play a pretty mean accordion.
Teddy never made any recordings, did he?
Not that
Tapes.
we have, no.
He always played by ear, and he played his own music sometimes, but I would hear him on the organ and on the guitar. You know, we lived right next door. And
No, I think that might be Freddie again. The one that at the beginning was in the red jacket.
That's Nellie.
Nellie. Nellie Cameron?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
she would have been a Rooney, then she married Albert Cameron.
Right.
So.
Nellie, Nellie. She was
Teddy's brother or sister.
This is the one that Jerry thinks those three little girls at the back at the beginning would be her
Grandchildren.
grandchildren.
See, they were such a big clan. There were.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Parker. They called him Skip Parker.
I think it's Owen Parker.
Oh, that's exactly
Yeah.
who it is. It's Tommy Parker's father. And his widow's still living, Isabel Parker, on Adolphus between Parr and Montague.
Yeah, those pictures were of Dad and myself and my sister Wanda, who was a few years younger, a couple of years younger.
Excellent.
And he had 2 daughters and a son. And the son was much younger. And he and Teddy Rooney worked together at Finnegan's. Parker was the repairman for the appliance service, and Ted did the deliveries of the appliances and also delivered coal.
And Finnegan's was...
Finnegan's was where Harbourfront is. They also ran the movie theater, and they had the Quaddy Coal Company, and they sold General Electric appliances. That's what you do in a small town to survive.
Yeah. Paul Tennant and Addie Rooney, or Adeline Rooney.
Adeline Rooney.
Yeah. Rooney, but she was also Tennant, and then when she died, she was Levine. Her maiden name was Rooney. Levine, Lavigene. And it was Dave Tennant she married, and Eldon Levine, Eldon.
Okay.
Paul's her son, the youngest one. But Nanny only had 4 boys, and Paul was the youngest.
I see. And that's him.
That's Paul.
And that's Adeline.
Yes,
Okay,
for
great.
sure.
She lived over here alongside the house that I was born in. She was our neighbor there, and I was born in that house.
Oh, yeah.
They lived next door. She had 4 boys.
I don't remember my grandmother ever having a bird.
Who was your grandmother?
Really?
Not a living bird.
So which house does she live in?
The one would be the second house down behind the Masonic Hall.
Oh, yeah?
Because ours was the third house.
On Douglas
Then,
Street or here?
on Douglas Street, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The one beside the second house, there's only 3 houses on that side when I was born, and we were in the third one, and they were in the next one. They were in the second one going down. They were next door neighbors. Till Dad bought the house up where I am now in 1946.
That's what we did then. We showed off our Christmas gifts. We always had to leave our Christmas gifts with the tag of who gave them to us all in the box. And when we called our relatives to say thank you, we couldn't just say thanks for the gifts. We had to say thank you for and name what we were thanking them for. That's not Uncle Paul, is it? That might be Uncle Paul.
He definitely looks like
He looks
one
like
of her
Uncle
children
Paul.
for sure.
It's not Dad, and it's not Bob, and it's not Uncle.
Interesting. So this Christmas was almost certainly in the 60s anyway.
Obvious, yeah, because that was a teeny tiny house, and this is not that house. So it's either wherever she lived on Douglas Street, or it's when she was still living at Aunt Kay's, or what we call Aunt Kay's, the family home.
There was Nellie down, I forget how many, Nellie Cameron. Then the other one lived up in St. John. Another one lived in up in the Parole. I don't know where Big Betty lived. I didn't
Kingsbury.
know what a Big Betty, Little Betty. I don't know what Little Betty's name, but I think her name was Christine. Like I say, four of the boys were never. I think Johnny was the only one that was Johnny and Fuddy. Out of four of the boys weren't even married. Johnny was and Fuddy that lived over here. There was a little small shack alongside of where the weather pole was. That's where Fuddy lived in that. And then of course Teddy and Bernie lived in the house. Teddy and Freddie, I mean.
Was he married? Was Teddy married?
Teddy was never married.
Never married.
I think Johnny and Fuddy were the only two married. Teddy never was married.
That's Teddy there.
I wonder what he did all of this filming for, you know, like.
He spent a lot of money on film.
Yeah,
He's got long shots of harbour sunsets and all kinds of things.
no, I don't
It was a
imagine
lot of
it
hassle. You had
was.
to get it, send it away and get it developed.
Now there you are.
There
Oh,
I
sorry.
am. There I go.
There you go, honey. There's Teddy. Now this is in back of the house.
That
right?
is
and
a
then
long
and that's
time
you and
ago.
Bub, isn't it? Now who's sitting over there
Okay.
looking at
so
Uncle
if
Teddy?
The Donahue lady, but there was an older sister that left before I could remember her very much. Linda.
Oh yeah, Teddy was always pottering around and doing something. When he wasn't taking pictures, he was around the garden, and he used to work for Finnegan at the theater. He used to haul coal. I used to go with him a lot, hauling coal when I was younger.
So that's Jerry and her brother Bub or Frederick.
Is that Bud or Bub?
Bub.
Yeah, B-U-B.
Oh, that was Dolly, yeah.
Yeah, Kathleen Dolly, because there is another Kathleen who's the
Yes.
daughter. So just
Kathleen Dolly.
Dolly
Rooney.
is the mum.
Oh, she was Rooney.
Do you know who the
Who's
little
George
one?
Matthews' mum?
The other Kathleen.
Yeah.
Because George is Kay's son, and Jerry is baby Betty's son. The two sisters. So yes. Always loved flowers. Teddy, oh my goodness, he had such a green thumb. His house down here, which is no longer there now, there's a huge home there.
That's Ron Hahn. Ron Hahn had a repair garage, the corner of Queen and Patrick.
They called him Bomber Hahn.
Yeah, well, that's Kay Rooney, George's mother. Walked by. That's Kay. And it looks like they tried to make two cars out of one or something.
That's Bill, his father, I believe. Yeah, I don't remember much about him. I was very young when we would visit. I remember him being in the house, but Aunt Kay was the person who stood out, because Aunt Kay was always,
Those cars.
I mean, she was a jokester. She was always playing music. She was always, you know, carrying on. And so I think that's why she stands out so much in my mind. But I do remember Uncle Bill. But he, I think, was more reserved than my Aunt Kay was.
Oh, that's out at in Shamcook.
Oh, Shamcook?
Yeah, that is what we used to call Pearl's Corner. And right at the intersection, where you turn right from Bayview Drive to go around towards St. John, just across that intersection was a little convenience store, gas pumps. The building that's dilapidated to the left was at one time a takeout. And off to the right were overnight cabins, and they were called the You Like Us cabins. You Like Us cabins. And they, at one time, had cabins across the street as well. It was quite an enterprise when it was at its best. But you see where that's boarded up? A car crashed into it one night, and the owner of the car and the owner of the property couldn't come to terms, so he boarded the car in there, and it stayed there for years. I think the car belonged to Norm Beckerton, and the property belonged to Ansel Cummings. And for reasons I can't explain, they couldn't come to terms, so there the car stayed.
Inside the...
Inside the building.
Second time it happened, I think they kept the car. Because you would go out around and you would see the tail end of that car. Because I can remember saying to Dad, well, Daddy, what are they doing with the hood of the car stuck in their
Oh my gosh.
And he would go, oh, maybe they're using it as their kitchen table.
Across the road, they always had a bear, black bear, tied to a post. That was there for a long time. Yeah, we used to go up there a lot because they had a takeout place up there. Go to the little store, sold groceries, gas, and they had a take. You used to go up there and get a hot dog, get fish and chips, clams, fried clams.
There he is. Somebody's filming him again. Maybe it's Dad.
Possibly.
That's Bob. So that's the boy with the ears. We kept saying the
Yeah.
little boy because of his ears, so we were easily picking him out every time he appeared. But yeah, that now that you say that's Bob, and I said it might be Bob. No,
There are these two. You don't
Teddy.
know about.
Freddie was the one that went off the wharf,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, and he
So this is maybe Freddie with a lady unknown.
The wave. at
I
the
know they all
camera.
act like Dean Martin.
They're doing it all for film,
They
but
certainly
so.
are.
that's not one
Could
of
that
his.
be Bernie? It
Well,
looks like
that's
Bernie,
who.
actually.
See, I don't know him, but that's what I was wondering. Because then, would that be? Is that Bernie?
That's one of the Rooney's.
Okay, so this is Bernie.
And would the dark-headed one be Fuddy again?
It very possibly could be.
Where was that? Oh, like next
that-
door of
yeah,
the family's house?
Yeah. And
Oh, that's right. That was before me, but I do remember.
that little shed there, that George got it all done up because he wanted to keep it because that was where the baskets were kept. That was where the baskets were kept. I'm not sure if the signal was actually on your property or the other one.
On, I think, my Aunt Kay's wharf. I think the pole was at the end of my Aunt Kay's wharf. Now that you say that, yes. Yes. Because I caught two great big huge flounder off her wharf, but it seems to me that there was a pole there. Because there was a hole in her wharf where this pole went down into the rocks. But it wasn't used anymore when we were here, when we moved here in the 70s. Not that I know of, but I do remember catching it because I didn't like flounder. I didn't eat any of it. Now I love it. But
Yeah.
That's my dad's brother, George. You've got him as one of the four boys of Addie. And that's Kathleen
She
Dolly.
looks so much like the lady who lived next door to me.
I think
oh, he's got a scar above his eye.
That's Addison, Dixon, and Peggy. Addison was the janitor of the post office before Teddy.
Oh,
So
really?
Teddy succeeded him, and they lived out on Mowat Drive, raised 3 kids in town. Later on, their daughter Elizabeth ran an inn at the Hiram Walker estate.
Oh, really?
She was Elizabeth Cooney.
That's
That's
Jerry.
you. That's Jerry.
That's
yeah.
Jerry.
Well, it might be.
Okay, so who is this?
Johnny.
That's Uncle Johnny?
That's
or is that
Johnny.
Johnny Cameron?
No, Johnny Rooney.
That's Uncle Johnny. Okay. And that might be
That's
Doug, you
Doug,
said?
Dougie, yeah. It's
Dougie
gotta be. It
Rooney?
looks just like, yeah, I'm pretty
Doug
sure,
at the
I'm almost positive that's Doug.
Which is Johnny's son.
Son, yeah.
Which house is this? Is this the
That's-
house
This is the
yeah.
Rooney house.
next door?
Yeah. And do you know who's... now that you identify him, I have no doubt that's Uncle Johnny. I remember him. He was such a character.
He was.
In the background, standing on the step,
Oh,
I
yes.
think that's Aunt Kay.
Yeah,
Sure
probably
looks
is.
like her hair.
I think that's
Yeah.
her over there.
So who was living in the house next door then? There was Dolly.
And Teddy in the beginning. The last one to leave was Teddy, because he stayed there and took care of her and did all the errands.
And then when she passed, Aunt Kay moved in.
And we moved in.
You
Yeah,
and Aunt Betty moved in.
yeah, and my brother.
And Bub.
Yeah, because my grandmother left the house to my mother.
Okay. That's Teddy sitting there with her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's Teddy.
that's Teddy. So I think the next frame where he's by himself.
Taking pictures, I don't know who would have taken that one.
I wish there was sound with these, but maybe best not.
Yeah. You could be right.
That's your mom?
It looks like my mother right there.
Yeah. Rolling a cigarette?
Oh, it would have to be her then.
Okay.
What was I thinking?
That looks like a little Betty. That's little Betty there. She was the 11th one. Out of 12 of them, she was the 11th one that died. She died a few years ago. And Teddy was the last one that died.
Yes.
to
She's
roll
like-
her eyes. Get that camera out of here.
That's what they're both probably thinking.
So your mum was Geraldine, right?
Yes,
She called Geraldine? I mean,
Betty.
people call her...
Betty.
No, she was...
She was baby Betty.
Yeah.
That's right. She was the baby Betty.
Yeah, she was the baby Betty. It's a confusing
Well, hello.
mess. I know. That's your mum, right? That was her with the dress.
I used to live in the house over there, but what's that garage that's over here on the next street behind that house? There used to be a house there. She lived in that. It used to be a Robichaud lived in it first, and then she lived in there with her. She was married to a Higgins, and then they split up, and she had a boy and a girl. The girl's still here in St. Andrews, the boy's in St. John. Her daughter's still here. She works in the motor inn. She worked at the Shire Down Inn there with a Kennedy out for a long time. Now she's working at a motor inn.
We bought the house in 65, and by 67, Bill was living there because he helped us build the fence. He was, because we had to get permission from them and everything. And Bill was just one of these guys, never stopped working. He was always working at Colson Cove or Point La Pro when they were building them, and very hard work. I'm sure that's what killed him. No, I've got very good memories of the Rooney family. And Mrs. Rooney she'd sit outside, I would chat with her when I went by, and then she used to tell me that Pagan Street had been a very lively place at one time. We had quite a few chats. But Kay she'd go out fishing and catch all this fish and freeze it and make chowder to a band playing. She was really they were all hard working, let's put it that way.